Hi everybody. Try to get this thing adjusted. I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me today. This is an impromptu live video just to help some people that have asked for some messy watercoloring help by request. So I'm very happy to help them out. I'm going to be stamping with Beautiful Bouquet and the Bouquet Bunch framelits, and these are 10% off in my online store. So you can check now and get the 10% discount, but that discount goes away whenever the new annual catalog comes out at the beginning of June. So be sure to get this. This is a wonderful stamp set. While I wait a few moments for some people to gather, I'd love to share some happy mail with you. I've got a card from my good friend Robin, and she made a beautiful Get Well card, which I thought was wonderful, and her envelope is just gorgeous. Isn't that lovely? I love envelope art. It's so cool. It's like super happy mail because you get happy just from getting the envelope. Then you open it and it's even better. I have a card from Rachel Palmieri, and she is in Australia. And this is just gorgeous. Check it out. So nice. Thank you for thinking of me, Rachel. I'm really touched. And your words inside were really beautiful too. And I have this very special card to share with you from Lynn Klitsky. She is in Wisconsin, and Lynn sent me this wonderful card. She is a Stampin' Up demonstrator that purchased one of my tutorials, and she sent me a card, and it was so nice of her. Very, very sweet. Thank you, Lynn. I really love it. Hi, Betty. I get these little alerts that let me know that somebody is watching. So, good morning, Betty. Hi, Kathy. Yes, I'm so happy to receive happy mail. So, I'm going to be sharing the messy watercolor technique today, and it's going to be a card that I'm going to feature on my blog on Friday. With Onstage, the getting together of all of the projects that we have to give in order to like not miss a day of blog posting, it's a lot. And then I also was not able to attend the Onstage at the very last minute. My doctor did not clear me for travel, so I did not get to go to Onstage. But the good news is that one of my downline was able to collect all of my things in my bag, and it's in the mail coming to me now, so I can share those things with you guys. So I guess the big topic that everyone is talking about is color revamp. Wow! The purples are amazing. I'm excited to get to work with some of the purples that are coming up really soon. If you have a Stampin' Up demonstrator, be sure that this is the time that you stay in close contact with them in order to make sure that you are going to get all of the latest catalogs, all of the latest promotions, and any information. If you are watching and you do not have a Stampin' Up demonstrator, I would love to have you, and I would love to pamper you and spoil you. So you could go to jennystampsup.com and you can get to all of my information there. So let's get started. I'm going to turn the camera around so that it faces my work surface, and I'm clicking my lights on so that you'll be able to have a good look at what we're working on. we're going to make a whole card. Hi, Laurie. I'm so glad that you could stop in. This is going to be a really fun card. Hi, Tammy. I'm going to work on getting this flipped over without making you dizzy. Getting all my lights. Okay, so bear with me for just a moment. I'm going to do the flip. And then I'll zoom in to my work surface if I can. Yeah, I can. Okay. It's a little bit of a different view because of the placement of my phone, because I record on my phone. So if something goes out of whack, then you guys send me up a signal and let me know. So this is what we're going to be working with. I know that it's going to be limited to a certain amount of time, a certain area. Let's see if I can make this adjust just a little bit more. Oops. Bear with me. Okay. There we go. It's going to show more than just my work surface, but I'd rather you see more than not see enough. I hope that makes sense. So anyhow, I want to help with messy watercolor. Messy watercolor is a very easy technique, but I do not see very many people successfully using it. And it is what it is. It's just kind of a throw caution to the wind kind of thing, and I'm going to try to see if I can help you my best with it. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be stamping with this. This is kind of a project that is done on the fly. I know that I needed to make a card this week for Global Design Project, and they have a color inspiration. So these are the colors that they're going to be using in their challenge. So I'm going to just stick to these three colors. They're Tranquil Tide, Crumb Cake, and Night of Navy. One of the things that I find most inspiring about a color challenge is the fact that I can challenge myself. So I'm just checking the comments. It looks like my comments are not refreshing, so if you guys notice that I'm not answering any questions, then maybe I'll need to restart it. So I've already mounted up a couple of stamps. This is from Beautiful Bouquet again, and I'm going to use the branch. It looks like a flower stem. It looks like a branch to me. The small cluster of teeny weeny tiny flowers. And these are perfect for messy watercolor. I think I'm getting them again. I'm getting the comments again. Hi, Marion. And this is one of the small leaves from the stamp set. So it looks like there's a couple of options for getting the leaves and a couple of options for the flowers. And you could stamp this just in a straight stamp, but you can also just take it one step further and say, let's do messy watercolor, or let's emboss in gold. Ooh, how about that? There's so many different things that we can do. So to start off, I'm going to make sure I have a folded up paper towel, and this will definitely be needed. I've got a little scrap piece of paper from a scrapbook page that I made yesterday. It's just a little scrap of DSP. I've got a panel of watercolor paper that is going to be layered on a piece of Whisper White. The Whisper White is cut to 4 by 5 and a quarter, and this is cut 1/8 of an inch smaller. And this is my standard go-to mount for any kind of a card front. I like to have things mounted and centered if I can get it, and I like it to be nice and firm. And the watercolor paper, if it buckles, it's going to need something to bring it back down. It's going to go crazy, but we're going to tame it back down. And these are the colors that I'll be using. So to start off, I've got my Stampin' Spritzer, and I've got an aqua painter. So I want to design this to where I'm going to have the, oops, I've got something on the back of my block. I'm going to have the little branch or sprig come out this way. And I want it to be centered in the card, and then I'll feature the flowers on top, and then I'll feature my greeting down toward the bottom. But I want to maintain the integrity of all of this white space. So that means that I'm going to be adding a lot of water and messiness, but I don't want it to run over the entire card. So that's where the catch is on messy watercolor, is it can really go like a river and go crazy, or you can just make sure that you tame it down. So this is where the breakdown in the process happens for those that have contacted me asking for help. So we're going to concentrate really strongly on that particular area. Okay, so I want to start off by stamping this little branch with crumb cake. I'm going to set aside the stamp case here. And I'm only going to ink it up to about right here. I don't want the entire length to be inked. And that's because I don't want it to run off the paper on the side. So to be sure that I get this in just the right place, I've got this little scrap of paper, and I'm going to place it a 1/2 inch away from the outside edge. That's going to protect the outside edge from getting any ink in case I got a little bit further than I wanted to. And if you guys have any questions at all, then please just send up a comment. And I'd love to hear who you are and where you're watching from. So I'm going to stamp this down in a non-messy kind of a method. And this is going to be the part that is a little bit more static in the design. So just so you know, this is my regular video table setup. You're seeing more than you normally see in my videos because I always zoom it in to where it just has this area here. And so this is a very small desk with some lighting. Here's one light and here's the other. And I have a homemade reflector that you can see here that is right up against the edge of the light so that it will bounce all that wonderful light back over here so that it helps you to be able to see things a little better. And I've got a white poster board over here that also helps to reflect some of that white stuff, some of the good light. Okay, so let's get into the messy watercolory part. So I want to make sure that this is dry. Watercolor paper, whenever you stamp on it, it's going to take longer for the fluid to be absorbed into the paper. So if I don't want to have the brown mix in with the colors that I'm going to add, then I want to make sure that I get it dry. And that's going to make it less likely to move around once more water comes onto the paper. And as I'm adding some heat, the paper is kind of going like this. So I use the heat tool on the back side to bring it back down to a shape that I can work with. Now I could always tape this down too. I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to avoid it. One way would be to add a teeny tiny bit of snail take a little bit of that tackiness off. Put it in the corners. And it'll stay down to my work surface. There we go. Like magic. Okay, let's get stamping. This is the messy part. I'm going to use Night of Navy. And Night of Navy can be a very intense color. I know that a lot of people don't like Night of Navy because it can really just overwhelm things. So let's find a solution. Let's get a happy medium. So this is going to be the shape that fits directly on. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does fit right on here. So here comes the messy part. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the paper with my aqua painter in the areas that I know the flower is going to end up being stamped. And if you get a little extra water, that's okay, because we're going to stamp this flower image many times. So I'm staying away from the brown lines. I don't want to reactivate that brown if possible, although there's really no way I can completely stay away from that. All right. Checking the orientation of this stamp is important because you want to make sure that it's not going to lay right if I do this, but it will if I turn it the right direction. I'm going to stamp off once because this is a very intense color, and this is going to be the background, the backmost flowers, and I'm going to line it up as best as I can, knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, now everything was wet on the paper, and I've added a second generation of ink, and now the ink is going to be moving around. And if you guys have any questions, be sure to ask as we go. Okay, so I can use the tip of my aqua painter to pull some of that water out. If it's like this is a little clog right here, I can get it back up. And then some of the stamped image didn't get very messy because it went beyond where I had added the water. So I'm just moving the color around. And it's going to flow from one part to the next. That's basically, I mean, look how messy it looks, but it also looks a bit artistic. So before I add anything else on here, I'm going to dry. So I'm sorry it's going to be just a little loud. Night of Navy is one of our inks from Stampin' Up that has a tendency to get a little grainy. So whenever it's diluted, you can see the little grains of color. And that can work in your interest or it can work against. Let's see how dry. Okay, that's dry enough. So you like how it looks, Betty? This is one of the easiest ways to not fail whenever you're doing watercolor, because messy watercolor doesn't come with a roadmap. It comes with a prescription of just letting go of the control. And to me, personally, that's pretty good because when you're forced to stay inside the lines and have something very precise, then it's a little more pressure on you. But whenever you use messy watercolor, then, you know, it takes that pressure off. Okay, so let's look at a second way to be able to use the messy watercolor. So I'm going to add some water onto a first generation of ink. Instead of a wet paper surface, I have a dry paper surface now, and I'm going to give the messiness directly to the stamp. So in order to not have the water go all over, I'm going to use this little spritzer. Now, can you see it's already moving around? That's fantastic. Now, this previous time we tried to stay onto the branches. But this time, nope, I'm going to go way off. Now, as soon as I pick up this stamp, this fluid is going to start running all over the place. So I'm going to be careful not to let it drip on my paper. So I'll put this here just to make sure that it stays where it's supposed to. And I'm just going to add it. That's it. Now, it's not going to give me anything that is a formed petal like the image here. It's not going to do that. It's just going to give me the general shape of a cluster. This is almost looking like a hydrangea. I love hydrangeas. Because of the colors for the challenge that I'm going to make the card, I can use different generations of ink, but I can't use a different color of blue because I would use a different color of blue for hydrangea. But do you see the purples coming out too? Pardon me. There are purples also coming out in this color, in the Night of Navy. All right, so I'm gonna blot that off and I'll dry this up. Now, when it's drying and when you're using a heat tool, you can easily blow the ink or the wet paint into a different area. So sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's not what you might have in mind. So I've got a couple of variations in color here, and it's all from the same stamp pad. And that blue's getting pretty intense. So I want there to be more definition in the final petals. So I'm just going to blot up anything that may not have dried. I got a little bit. So that's going to allow me to, before I go and put my final layer of flowers, I'm going to add a couple of leaves, and I'm going to make them semi-messy as well. Yeah, Betty, there's so many different colors that are sitting inside of a stamp pad that it's hard to be able to say, oh yeah, this is just one color. You can get so much out of it. All right, so I'm going to use this Tranquil Tide, and I'm going to give it a little spritz. Okay, that's a little more spritz than I wanted, but that's cool. And that's going to give me a loose looking leaf. And I can also just take what's left here. I haven't done anything with the stamp, and go the other direction too. How about that? And it's going to give me the general idea of a leaf without needing to stick to that definition. That's what I like about messy watercolor. You can do so much with it that the rules are suspended. So by controlling the fluid, we are preserving the integrity of all of that white space. It's perfect. All right, so I think I'm going to give one more leaf. And I'm going to give it a spritz. The Stampin' Spritzer is so strong. The force of, I have to start over on that one. The force knocked all the ink off of the leaf stamp. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, that's a little better. Now I want to plan, before I flip the stamp over, I want to plan where I'm going to have the leaf. And I'm thinking I'm going to have it down here. Okay. Get some of this extra water off of my Stampin' block before I flip it. Okay, there we go. That's good enough for me. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's messy watercolor. Messy watercolor has very few rules that you have to stick to. Okay, we're going back over to add some of more definition to the flower bud. So what do you guys think this looks like? I wish I could get it to look like a blue bonnet. I'll have to try that. I'm natively from Texas, and blue bonnets are so pretty. Okay, I'm going to stamp off because I want a lighter intensity. And then I'm just going to kind of make sure that my little flower pieces that are going to stamp clearly are staggered away from this dark area. I want them to hit some of the white areas. So I'm turning my stamp around to audition it and see where. And I'm giving a nice good push. There we go. So we have some petals that have a definition to it. Some, but not too much. So what do you think so far? How are you liking this technique? I'd love to hear what you think. This actually is a pretty quick card. It comes together very quickly. And I've got some sentiments. That's one of my favorite parts about this stamp set is the sentiments. They are gorgeous. Gonna do a little cleaning up as I go. That way I can have room to finish off the card with you guys. It is fun, Tammy. I like this style of watercolor, and it's still gonna give you a clean and simple look, but it's something different and it's something fun. And I make a lot of cards, and whenever I can do something that's just a little bit different, then sometimes it's a nice little breakup in the routine. Okay, so what sentiment should we choose? There's so many to choose from, but since I've got things moving in this direction in my design, I'm thinking that I want to have something that goes this way also. How about Happy Anniversary? Let's try it. This is beautiful font. I love these fonts. All right, so I'm going to transfer one of these stamps. And I'm going to hijack the block for another use. I would love to see what you come up with, Betty. A Stamparatus would work good, Kathy. That is a really good choice. The Stamparatus for me is I would have to keep cleaning and then repositioning either the paper or the stamp on the door, because I'm making just very slight movements with the block. For example, if I stamped it this way the first time, and then I've stamped it this way the second time, and then I stamped it this way the third time, everything's in the same area, but you would have to be able to adjust your paper. And I want to be able to adjust the block, the stamp, like this, and turn it to see exactly how it's going to look on the paper. So that's like the number one reason of why I would suggest using a block over the Stamparatus. Stamparatus is wonderful, don't get me wrong. I love that Stamparatus. Okay, we're going to use brown to tie in the least used color. I'm going to put my head right in this camera. All right. I love that font. Isn't it gorgeous? So now before I go any further, I'm going to make sure I have no blue ink on my fingers. Oh my. I have messed up so many projects by not checking to see that I've gotten all of the ink off of my fingers. Since I like the clean and simple style, clean and simple can be clean and dirty sometimes. I think this paper didn't warp too much, so I can use some snail adhesive to adhere it down to the layer. Although normally I would use tear and tape. I use tear and tape as a very frequent adhesive. Whenever I'm going to use a watercolor panel, tear and tape is my go-to. Do you guys have a go-to? What's your favorite adhesive? I'm going to make sure I do get that adhesive as close to the edge as possible, because that's where my paper is going to give me a lot of trouble. So I'm using a lot of snail. I know. I don't mind. I have some refills. Okay. I'm going to move this around before I let it hit the paper. Hopefully. If you watch my YouTube channel, you know that there's many a time when I have to try to get that paper back up really quick. Okay, that worked out. I am using a lot of Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'll show you why in just a moment. So this is my typical adhesive grid that I tend to make, and sometimes I will cut them in half if it's a paper that I don't need as much stability for. And the reason is because these are the key pressure points that are going to keep my card from sinking down whenever it's put in the mail. So if you can imagine that whenever you mail a card, it's going to have pressure by being in the envelope. It's going to have pressure by being run through the machine that the post office uses to meter their mail. It is going to be stacked up, and you could just imagine. So I'm giving it as much of a fighting chance as I can by using, this is my typical adhesive grid. So it's going to give, all these pressure points are going to have equal spaces in between them. Okay, here we go. Now I could stop here, or I could add a little something to the card. I do want to add an inside, so I'll have to grab an insert for that. I keep a lot of pre-cut paper on hand. Let's see, how about for the inside of the card, there's just a little something different. I can try out another one of these pretty stamps. Do you hear the cuckoo? All right, I see a beautiful flower. That I can add to this block right here. And I'm going to make it brown. I know that's crazy, right? But I want to stick to my color choice and make it brown. Okay, so there's one end of the card. And there's the other end of the card. And you'll see exactly what I mean. I don't want to lay my card in a block of stamp. I have that adhesive grid that I always follow, and I will use that here as well. It's the same grid, and it's equally placed, unless by human error, like here I made a mistake, but it's equally placed adhesive. And by using these little dots, I get more questions about these little dots. I am making sure that I leave my card base flexible, but the insert will not disappear. It will not give, it'll still move, but it won't come out. It's very, very much in there. So what can we add? How about a little linen thread? Thanks, Jackie. So I've always got linen thread on hand, and I think linen thread will actually fit in with the color scheme too. Let's see. I don't know that I can get a, let's see if I can get a bow out of this tiny little scrap. I save all these little scraps of ribbon by pushing them back into the case they come off of. And sometimes I can get a tiny little bow that will work on a project, and sometimes I can't, especially if I don't have any fingernails. Get this one to go in there. Almost there. Come on. It might work. It might work. Yes, it will. Yay. Okay. Gosh, that was a small piece of thread. Okay. Here we go. Just a very simple bow, and I don't want it to be too big to overwhelm the flowers. Looks about right. It's easy to move on and not stamp the inside, Kathy. One of the main reasons that I do it is because my husband often needs a card whenever he's going to visit someone, or if he just needs a card to send out. My husband is a pastor, and so oftentimes he'll need a card at the last minute, and I make sure I have the cards made that he might possibly use, and I need it to be able to have the inside done up as well. All right, I've rolled up that glue dot so that it's just a shadow of itself. It's teeny tiny, and I'll be placing this glue dot. Let's do it at an angle here at the bottom of the branch. And I want to make sure that I keep all the accessories from actually being off the card. And I think that's about done. What do you guys think? Do I need to add Wink of Stella or anything to it? It looks pretty good to me. I like how the crumb cake, it's brown, but it also gives like a little touch of gold. So if I make a mistake, usually if I drop the stamp or something, which that happens to us all, then that's the time whenever I put an embellishment on top of it and fix it. I fix my little flubs. Thanks, Betty. I have a tendency to stop right here because I just want to keep it simple, and the more I add to it, it's going to push down on the card front whenever I mail the card, and it's going to make a difference. So anniversary cards, let's talk about how we can support our team members. If you're a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you have a team of people that you love and adore that are on your team, then one thing you can do is recognize them. If they've made it through another year of being a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, then send out a happy anniversary card. That's something that is tiny, and it means a lot to your team members. Just being recognized and being thought of means a lot. If you have other ways to support your team, then that's all great and well. But this is just one teeny tiny idea. I'm probably going to stamp a little something on the back of here that's just a little tiny message. And other than that, this is done. This is finished. So if you have any interest in becoming a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to have you on my team. Betty, that is commenting here, is one of my team members, and she is a joy to have in my team. Here you go, Tammy. I'm giving you a nice close-up. And we do a lot of fun events on our team, and we're non-geographical. Betty is as far away on the continental U.S. from where I am logistically, and I'll get a little closer, but the lights are gonna take it away. It's gonna go into shadow. I have so many more card ideas on my blog at jennystampsup.com, and when you're there, you can click on Shop Now. If you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, then click Shop Now and choose me as your demonstrator, and you can access the catalogs, and you can also click on Join My Team. I hope this is a better look, that it's getting you a better look, Tammy. Maybe if I go like this and put it towards the light, I can get it a little higher, but my phone is so high up and the lights are down here on the work surface. But I will have this card on my blog on Friday, and I'll make sure that I put some really good close-up photographs so that you guys can see. So thank you so much for stopping with me today and learning a little bit more about the messy watercolor. Wasn't that fun? I love it. If you guys have any questions at all, I will be monitoring the replay, and I'll be able to go back and answer any questions you have at all. Thanks for taking the time to stamp with me today. I really appreciate it. And I'll see all you guys next time. Bye.
Hi, my name is Trip. Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.